Welcome back to another Trent Takes On. I'm Trent Maddox. I'm the Trent from the title of the show. I'm coming to you on primary day here in California. Fun story about democracy. I took my kids with me to drop off my ballots at the mail drop-off ballot box thing. Here in California, voting is really easy. It's easy to register to vote, which is great. It's easy. They make it easy to cast your vote. They make it easy to get the votes counted. California does a lot of things really well because they have to. With nigh 40 million people in the state, you've got a whole lot of registered voters, and therefore you've got to have a pretty clear and clean voting process. And California does. It's great. Other states could absolutely emulate our system here, and it would behoove them greatly. And that's a funny thing, that not everybody treats democracy the same way. And I thought that this would be a fun moment to talk about democracy, what it means, what it's really about. Can we do a thought exercise on democracy? I think we can. I think we're all smart enough to have figured out how podcasts work. So you probably understand democracy in general. It's a system of self-governance. Democracy replaces monarchies and dictatorships when the people realize how screwed they are. They get rid of the dictator, they get rid of the monarchy, and they install a system of government where the people's voices are heard and the majority, or in some cases plurality, whatever the most popular thing is, that becomes the way we do things. Those are the representatives that we choose to make rules and laws, and choose justice officials to make sure that those laws are interpreted properly, and we also appoint executives. And see, here's the thing. Democracies are based off of the will of the people. That's what they're supposed to be based off of. Sometimes it's the majority of people. Sometimes it's a plurality. And I'm going to spill that out right now in this little thought exercise. You are at a big dinner out with a bunch of your friends. There are 10 people at the table. And you utilize democracy to decide whether or not you're going to order, say, sampler appetizer plates. We don't want to each have our own appetizer. We want to kind of, we're thinking maybe let's do appetizer plates so everybody gets a little bit of everything. That's the way it works. So 4 people vote for this and say, yes, we want appetizer plates. And 3 people say, no, we don't want those samplers, no samplers. And then the other 3 people just abstain. They're like, it doesn't matter. Okay. In this version of democracy, that's plurality. That means that we're going to get those sampler plates because 4 of the 7 people who actually voted in favor. Now, straight democracy would be if, 6 of the 10 voted, yes, let's do those sampler platters. Easy, straightforward. But a lot of people abstain. A lot of people don't get involved. A lot of people don't choose a side. In politics, hell, like I just explained, at the restaurant table. When you get the bill at the end of the night and you divvy it up, how do you divvy it up? Do you divvy it up 10 ways? Do you itemize? Everybody pays for whatever their, consumption was. The fairest thing is you pay for consumption. But there are a lot of ways to approach it. And you agree upon these things as a group. That's democracy. It's raw democracy. We have raw democracy at times, even in our state. It's this state of California where they'll put ballot initiatives out there. It's a ballot initiative that's attached to the, all of the other representatives that we elect. But these ballot initiatives ask us specific questions as a population. Are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? We've taken it to the people. Those specific ballot initiatives are an example of direct democracy. Now, funny thing about democracy in the United States, we've determined over the course of time that we've distilled this down, that voting is the right of every American citizen of adult age. That means if you're 18 years or older and an American citizen, you have the right to vote. You're supposed to, at least. Does every American citizen of voting age vote? Nope. Approximately 40% don't vote at all. That's a stunning number of people who are just standing on the sidelines accepting the fate that's drawn for them by the others. And the others are fairly closely divided. There are definitely more registered Democrats in the United States than Republicans. Reasons for that are pretty obvious. But there are 40% of people who are just basically saying, it's okay, whatever you guys decide, we'll just go with it. That's not the way democracy is supposed to work. I would love for these people to get involved, get in the game. You have skin in the game. Your taxes are determined by the policies of the people who are in charge of the country. The benefits that you get from your local, state, and national, federal governments are determined by the representatives that we elect. We can't do a straight-up democracy for everything. It's just not practical. We can't vote on every single thing as a nation. In fact, we don't vote for any single thing as a nation. And I know what you're thinking. Well, how do you choose the president? Well, there's this silly thing called the Electoral College. Okay, it's an anti-democratic piece of our Constitution that's been in there since the very beginning that gave disproportionate power to quote-unquote rural states. That's slave states at the time. They wanted to make sure that those rural folks got to have their voices heard, and they gave them a disproportionate voice in order to make that happen. And that's why when you look at the president of the United States, like, 2016, Donald Trump lost to Hillary Clinton by 2.85 million votes, yet he assumed the office. He lost the election, but he assumed the office, and it's not the first time that's happened. It happened in 2000 when Al Gore beat George W. Bush in the popular vote, but George W. Bush got to assume the position. So we're not a true democracy. There are a lot of different little facets, little functions that change the way it works. Sometimes when we're talking to that dinner party of 10, we're telling 3 or 4 of those people, we're not going to count your vote because you weren't sitting at the table when the question was asked. You were at the restaurant, or you were in the restroom, or you went to the bar to get a drink. But you weren't here when the question was posed, therefore you don't get to vote. That's discrimination based off of location. But what if you were saying, okay, well, of the 10 people here, 3 people are Latino, and 2 people are black, and 5 people are white? What if you've determined that the black people and the Latino people don't get to vote because they're black, just because they're black? That's discriminative, and in our democracy, that's illegal now, and it should be. The only way a democracy is really going to work is if everyone has an equal voice. And it doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter who you choose to love. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a female or non-binary. It doesn't matter how you self-identify, what gods you choose to love or worship, who you choose to love. It doesn't matter. You're an American citizen of voting age. You should have the right to vote, and your vote should be equal to all the other votes. One person, one vote. One citizen, one vote. Why do I want to talk about all this? Well, it's primary day in California. And my kids were curious about democracy, and I tried to explain to them that it's the will of the people. Yet every time I talk about democracy on the pod, it's on fire. Because, well, it's on fire. So many undemocratic mechanisms are in place that even the reasonable representative democracy that we used to have is going by the wayside. Gerrymandering is completely out of control. Through the use of computers, you can draw maps with surgical precision to ridiculously dilute the voting blocks that would vote against you. Republicans do this a lot. Then they get sued because they should be sued because what they've done is illegal. It's unconstitutional. Those maps go before courts. Those courts strike those maps down. They say redraw those maps. They go back. They redraw the maps. Only they don't make big changes that actually make them correct. They make little tweaks. They made this little tweak. And then it gets sued again. And it goes up. And the court goes, no, this map's not good. You got to redraw it. And what Republicans are doing this cycle is just running out the clock in states like Ohio, where they've sent 5 different maps to the state Supreme Court. All of them have been struck down by a Republican Supreme Court. An elected Republican Supreme Court in the state of Ohio has struck down their maps 5 times. But they're going to get away with it, for this cycle at least, because they're ignoring the rulings of the Ohio State Supreme Court. Same thing happens in Florida. Same thing is happening in Alabama. Same thing is happening in Georgia. The list goes on and on and on. Democrats got called out for this in New York, and you know what they did? They appointed a special redistricting person who redrew the maps, and this time the state said, nope, those are good. Or the state Supreme Court said, no, those are good. See, here's the thing. When Democrats are given an order by the courts, they follow it. It's funny how that works. The Law and Order Party doesn't give a flying about law and order. They care about power. And I think that's what we really got to get back to here. We live in this democracy, and in our democracy, we use what's called a bipartisan system. There's 2 parties. Now, there are other parties out there. You don't know about them, Or if you do know about them, it's because they are a nuisance. Green Party, Libertarian Party, American Freedom Party. Ugh. Don't even get me started. Most of these parties are made up of kooks, to be honest. Basically, you have to understand that in a bipartisan, in the system that we've set up, this two-party system that we've set up, which is wrong, by the way, we never should have done it this way. If you want to win, you have to attach yourself to one of these two major parties. So the longer it exists, the more power those two parties have. And basically, at this point, it's monopoly. Monopoly, biopoly. Two in control of everything. And those two are completely diametrically opposed. And that's really what I want to talk about. It's not just about democracy. It's not just about the obvious nature of the people should decide, make these decisions. The people should be allowed to make these decisions. And all of these machinations that exist need to be done away with. But I also want to talk about the two parties and what they're running on and what they stand for. I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal. I'm progressive. I'm a Democrat, if you force me to put a label on it. I believe in equality. I believe in justice. Real justice, where everyone is equal under the eyes of the law and everyone enjoys the same protections under the law. I believe in true equality, and I believe in the rule of the many. And if I were in the minority, which I'm not, I would work diligently to try to regain the majority, or I would understand that I'm going to be forced to live in a situation where my beliefs are not shared by the majority of people. I'm going to have to sway people over to my way of thinking, or I'll have to move on. Maybe another country where people are more closely aligned with my beliefs on equality. I don't know. But I don't. See, I was born here in the United States. I was raised here in the United States. I voted here since I was, I wasn't allowed to vote in the very first, I turned 18 at a wacky time, so I didn't vote for the first time until I was 21. No, 19. I don't know, somewhere around there. It's been a long time. And I was already in California. And in my lifetime, it's always been the process has always been basically the same. People try to win you over by explaining where they stand, what they believe in, what they would do if you give them the rights to this power. And we have this system in place where if they fail to live up to those things, you can vote them out, get rid of them, and replace them with somebody else in a few years. That's how it works. Term limits exist for a reason. Sometimes there are no term limits, which make you scratch your head and go, why? I don't know. Power begets power, right? But that's not the way things work anymore. See, one side actually believes that's the way things work. Well, we want to believe that's the way things work, but the cynic in us knows that it's not it, right? Tribalism has taken over and everybody's very entrenched on their sides. And the question I have for Republicans out there, conservatives out there, is what the are you entrenched over? What is your thing? What is your deal? What is it that you want that you're not getting? If you want a white Christian majority, all I can say is tough doesn't exist anymore. The white Christian majority is done. Already done. White people are about to be a minority plurality in this country. In other words, when you add up all of the minorities, there will be more minorities in the country than there will be white people. And that's happening in the next 12 to 14 years. That is demographic shift. It is what it is. We've got immigration. We've got differing birth rates between people of different races and white people. White people just aren't having as many babies. Probably because it turns out most white people are assholes who shouldn't be having sex to begin with. I digress. I've got kids because I'm a nice guy. My wife is a really nice person. And we love each other and get along, so we had kids. And we're trying to raise them right. In a world where it's okay to be who you are. And it's okay for everybody else to be who they are. I don't know what Republicans want anymore. I don't understand. It used to be anti-government. There used to be no big government. But now it's more like pro-government control over things that make them feel good. This weird theocratic fascism where they want to burn books that they don't agree with, even though we now live in a digital world and you people are morons for your theater. They want to ban things like critical race theory. They want to ban critical thinking. is what it is, what it boils down to. We don't want to talk about the way policies over the last 250 years have affected minorities in this country. That doesn't get you anywhere. Ignoring things doesn't make anything better. That's the old ostrich facility. How about this? Guns. They don't ever want to have their guns taken away. They want to have the right to hold on to any gun that they want. Why? What does that accomplish? What are you gonna do? What is the point? That's the thing. I don't even get it anymore. I got it when it was hunting. I got it when it was, Dad kept a revolver in a lockbox under his bed just in case there was a late night intruder, which, for the record, is dumb. Don't do that. Get a security system. Get good locks on your doors. Get good window. Come on, people. We need to be realistic. The chances are much higher that you're going to hurt yourself with that gun in your house than you are going to be stopping a crime. And if somebody steals your stuff, it's just stuff. It's just stuff. It's not a life. Save your life. They think we're taking away their guns. We should want to take away your guns, idiots. You're hurting yourself and others. Use your head. You don't have a completely unfettered right to use whatever you want to, quote unquote, defend yourself. You're not even defending yourself. You're attacking others. That's the thing. They're against raising. What are Republicans for? That's the thing. That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. What are these representatives who are going to make these policies for? What are they for? What do they believe in? Democrats believe in safety and public health and equality and justice. Republicans believe that Democrats are wrong for wanting all those things. That's actually the list. That's all they really believe in. They just want to hold power so that they can hold the system in some sort of complete stasis. Maybe even ratchet it back every once in a while. That's the plan. We want to go back. We want to take away rights from people who aren't white. We want to take away freedoms for people who aren't straight. We want to take away freedoms for people who aren't men, because most of them are men. Republicans don't believe in anything that's good for the masses. And that's really what you got to think about. If it's good for the whole population, they hate it. Social Security, hate it. Medicare, hate it. I guess they do like the military. So much so that they've grown it to the size that it dwarfs all other military in the world. They're totally into the military. Maybe because they carry guns. I don't know. They're against justice reform. They're against debt forgiveness when the student loan situation in the United States has been perpetrated for decades in a completely predatory manner. My wife still owes almost the exact same amount on her student loans that she did when she initially took them out. And we've paid on them for 15 years. Not a little, but a lot. In fact, when you add it up, we've already paid off the principal, yet there it sits. Republicans are against doing away with that practice, that predatory practice. Republicans are pro letting business do whatever they want, and then blaming Democrats for trying to rein that in. There's the good of the many, and there's the good of the few. And Republicans believe in the good of the few. That's the best way to boil it down. The good of the few. It's wrong to ignore the rest of society. The rest of society is what makes it work. I don't want to work on my car. When it breaks down, I need a mechanic out there. I don't want to learn how to butcher my own meat, even though I probably shouldn't be eating meat. I don't want to learn to grow my own vegetables. I live in a bad climate. I wouldn't be able to grow anything but like peppers and I guess artichokes, which I don't like. Yeah, I said it. What can I say? I'm not a hipster. Democracy is fragile because they've been beating the shit out of it for 40 years. I remember when I was a kid, Ronald Reagan running for president and saying, big government wasn't the answer. That it's all about small government. It's all about keeping the government out of your freedoms and your business. And he indoctrinated 2 full generations of Republicans into this belief that government in and of itself is bad. Think about how poisonous that is. The government isn't bad. The government is a tool. When bad people have control of the tool, they can do bad things with it, just like any tool. That's the premise of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A chainsaw in and of itself is not evil. You use it to cut down trees, which you can use for firewood or other things. We should stop cutting down so many trees and we should plant more trees. More trees is good. There's a bad example, but I thought it was kind of funny. Texas Chainsaw Massacre reference in the middle of a talk on democracy. It just felt like, felt like I needed to lighten it up a little bit because I'm talking about the evil of the people behind it. Any system is corruptible, and that's what you should be against. The corruption of the system, not the system itself, if the system is actually worthwhile. When you can use the powers of the government for good, when you can use the powers of the government to build and maintain a military that in 1941 was called into action to stop fascism from spreading across the entire world and successfully defeated it, alongside the United Kingdom, France. A lot of forces combined to say no. Canada, Australia, there were two sides in the world. There was a fascist side that wanted dictatorial rulership over everyone. They were slaughtering Jews by the millions in an act of sheer unbridled evil and terror. And our government stood together and said, no, we cannot allow that to happen. And so they fought back. And that's something that can only happen when you have a tool like the United States government to use in a good way. We don't want wars. We don't. Wars are terrible. The war in Ukraine is well over 100 days old now. Countless thousands of people have died. Millions of homes and businesses have been destroyed. It is going to take decades to rebuild the country of Ukraine if it still exists. And if you listen to their leadership, it's going to exist. I believe them. But here we stand in primary season, getting ready for a general election in 5 months. And my question to all of those out there is are you going to be those 4 people at the dinner party who just don't pay attention, who just don't want to get involved, who just say, you know what, I'll go with whatever the rest of you guys say? I believe in the thought exercise it was 3 people, but you get the picture. The 40% of Americans that are standing on the sidelines that aren't involved, that aren't picking a side, and the two sides are a Democratic side that believes in justice and equality and doing good for others and building a society where we're all equal and where all of our voices count and all of our voices matter, and a side where, none of those things are true. They don't believe in anything else. They don't believe in a society where we take care of our elderly or protect our young. They don't believe in a society where healthcare is a right. They don't believe in a society where everyone should be able to decide what they do with their own bodies because they want to be able to control certain things. They believe in a society where everyone is armed, where every person has a gun because it's some sort of twisted, fetishized right. That wasn't the point at all. Democracy's in deep, not just here, everywhere. And the only way to beat them back, the only way to beat back this version of the theocratic fascist Republican Party is to vote them out in droves, to give them an ass kicking at the ballot box, the likes of which are unseen in the last 100 years. A thumping of truly epic proportion. My theory is that it's going to take a big number of that 40% of Americans who are standing on the sidelines to get in the game. Get in the game and understand that equality isn't guaranteed, that the continuation of democracy isn't guaranteed, that there are two sides right now fighting in this battle for democracy. One side wants to preserve it, the other side wants to end it so that they can choose how things go from now on. Ignoring the will of the people. Anti-democratic. And that's the thing. They gain power through real democracy, through actual elections. They get chosen to be in the position to change the way the system works so that they get to stay in power forever, regardless of what the voters think. That's their plan. What are they going to do with that power? You don't want to know. So the next time you're out to dinner with your friends, hopefully you can come to a consensus on a lot of things, a lot of good things, And the number one thing, thanks Gene Roddenberry for Star Trek II, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. If we're going to have a society that saves this planet from its own destruction, that climate change thing is still coming, kids. I know we forget about it every once in a while, but it's getting hotter every bloody day, mainly because it's the beginning of summer. But summers are hotter than they've ever been. Storms are worse than they've ever been. Wildfire season is worse. Droughts are longer. Climate change is real. And it's going to make this planet largely uninhabitable in the next 20 years or so. So we better get cracking. But it starts here, 2022, right now. I did my research and I voted for the people who believe in justice and the people who believe that climate change is a real issue that needs to be addressed. I voted for people who believe in democracy. I voted for people who believe in criminal justice reform. And you should too. Basically, that means don't vote Republican. Because you don't want to give them all the levers of power. Look at how much damage they do on a day-to-day basis without federal power, except for the judiciary. Man, they rigged that thing. On that note, I'm going to sign off. It's been a minute since I talked to you. I'm sorry it took so long. I'll be better. Till we meet again, share this thing with a friend. Say, hey, this crazy dude Trent is not so crazy. He's actually onto something. He believes that we're all equals and that we should all have equal voices and that we should work for each other for the betterment of everyone. That isn't crazy. That's just good. Remember, we're all in this together. So be good humans and keep up the good fight. I love you.